We thank Ger Brennan for joining us today. Ger, some of us have to rush off to training. So listen, I call upon Ger. Ger he's a wonderful speaker. I've heard him on a few occasions, and it's beautiful to listen to a man that is known to so many of us from the Dublin area as a Dublin player and an All-Ireland winner on 2 occasions, and for him to just talk about a little bit about what his faith means in his and the healthy lifestyle that it makes a choice. So I just call upon and I thank him for coming today and being with us. Thank you.
Thanks, John, for the invitation, and it's great to be here with you today. Sorry for not being here earlier on this morning. We're still going well with my club, so St Vincent's in Marino. We're in the All-Ireland semi-final in 2 weeks, so we're on a training camp in Johnstown Bridge at the moment. So we were out there this morning in the lovely weather. So this is a nice break, a nice bit of heat, and lovely coffee down there as well, just to warm my hands. So thanks very much. But we are out there training again this afternoon, so I won't keep you too long. I suppose when Bishop Eamon rang me before the Christmas to ask me would I be interested in coming and getting involved with the day, I suppose I thought to myself, what could I possibly say to influence people who are suffering from addiction, who've gone through addiction, or who are working with people through addiction? Because as I would see it, I've had a very, very handy life. I grew up in Dorsestry in the town, one of 9 kids, chatting to Darren there as well, and he tells me from Hill Street, my mother's from Hill Street, Granville Street flats there as well, and they always looked after us. They pretty much sheltered us from most of the dangers that were there growing up in the north inner city. So in many ways I feel a bit inadequate in speaking with you here today, because the only things that I'm addicted to is chocolate and football, and that's the truth, So I just guess I want to just tell you a bit about myself and a bit about what I believe in, why I do believe in it, and in many ways to tie in with Father Trainer's point there at the end, what sustains you through times of hardship and through times of difficulty. So there's a couple of scripture passages which I've always been drawn to as regards sport and sporting achievements, and then there's many other scripture passages which I spend time reflecting on a regular basis. So who I am is Ger Brennan, or Gerard, in case my mother's watching, because she always gives out to me if I say Ger. And I see Father Grace there as well. I was involved in the Garnish Gospel Choir for many years, and she used to give out when she heard people calling me Jerry in the Gospel Choir as well. So it's Gerard. But no, I'm known, I guess, for football in Dublin, and quite often people would associate me with religious talks or someone who's very, very religious. And while I don't shy away from these titles, I don't just see myself in those 2 boxes. I think I'm more than those 2 images that people may have of me, and I think each and every one of us here is more than what people just see. I think there's a whole deeper reality to humanity, and for me that deeper reality finds expression through spending time with Christ, through spending time in prayer, through reconciling when I make mistakes, through reconciling again for making the same mistake, and for doing it again for making the same mistake for the 3rd time. But I only ever find true happiness, true contentness through deepening my relationship with Jesus Christ, and everything else I do flows through that. So sport for me is a big part of my life, and it always has been quite natural to me. I played everything in school. I went to Belvedere College, which is a Jesuit school. St Ignatius Loyola is the founder of the Jesuits, and his spirituality is something which is pretty much part of who I am today, and I'm pretty proud to say that, and I'm pretty proud to say that I had a great education in Belvedere as regards faith formation. But to go back to sport for a moment, when I started in 1st year, there was Mr. Phil Conway. Some of you may or may not know him, and he was a great man for sports around the country. And he said to us in 1st year, he says, play as many sports as you can, because the more sports you play, the less time you spend in class. So straight away, I thought to myself, this is brilliant, and Belvedere has tons and tons of sports available for kids. So I wasn't in class at all. So I think that's why I got on so well during my time there. And as you grow older, you begin, well, sport becomes a bit more serious, and life can become more serious. But you kind of have to step away from that and look at the reasons why you do something. You got to go back to a childlike mentality where you did something because you enjoyed it, because you got a great kick out of it. And growing up and playing with Dublin, there are a lot of pressures there on what's expected of you. And indeed, the competition just within the squad is pretty intense, and every training session you're at, you're being watched and you're being scrutinised. So it's something you kind of learn to deal with it, and it is something which it is quite pressurising. And I guess I've been able to cope with it quite well, to date, but not just on my own. In many ways, through my father, through some of my mentors I would have had, but primarily through my faith in Christ. So when you look at an athlete, you look at what they need to feed themselves, what they need to put into their body in order to get the best out of themselves. And remove ourselves from an athlete or anything like that. We all like doing exercise. It's something that is hard to do, but we all enjoy it. Having gone for a long walk or having gone for a run or wherever it is that we do. And on a scientific level, a physiological level, the brain will give you endorphins, which make you feel good about yourself. Okay, they make you feel good about yourself. So that sustains me as regards my reward for looking after my body, for putting the right food into myself. But like I mentioned at the start, I'm not just a sports person. I'm someone who I believe has a lot more to give to life than just being a sport person. And I guess that involves my faith and trying to sustain my faith. Throughout my life, I have been very fortunate to have had a great sense of God in my life. Growing up in Dorset and being heavily involved in Garner Street Church over many years, I've always felt drawn towards the church. I've always felt like I belonged to the church. And while I didn't necessarily understand, and still don't understand everything that goes on within the church and within the sacraments, going to Mass, going to church, being in those groups was something which is very, very natural to me. When I went to college, I probably drifted a bit. I was studying theology and Irish and minute, and while I was learning about theology, I certainly wasn't living out theology. I got caught up in the temporal things of life, and I still do here and there. Late nights out, enjoying a few pints and a few more, and just not concentrating on my studies, but primarily not giving time and giving discipline to my faith, because that was what really sustained me. But there was a time in the Gaeltacht in Dunquin, second year of college, where I was in a bad place. I had 100 people around me. We were in the pub, we were singing, dancing, Kayleys, you name it, great fun. But I felt empty, I felt alone, I felt very unhappy about myself. I didn't feel depressed. I don't suffer from depression, or never have been clinically depressed. But I felt like, I'm missing out on something. And I knew what I was missing out on was my faith and my personal relationship with Jesus Christ. So after that night, one of my very good friends, a girl, Clean Edwards, I asked her she was the only one who was driving actually, so we were in the middle of nowhere. Has anyone ever been in Dunquin? No? County Kerry? Yeah. So it's a beautiful spot, but it's miles away from civilization. So, especially when you've grown up in town in Dorset. So Clean, she brought me up to on Dingle, and there was adoration on there. And what to me felt like 1 minute turned out to be an hour and a half of sitting there in front of the host. And I don't know what went on, but I came out there, I felt renewed, I felt fortunate, I felt lucky that Christ was calling me back, that my friends around me, particularly Cleena, was through her faith inspiring me and bringing me back to Christ. But it was a moment of realisation that while physically I can eat the right food, I can do as many laps at the pitch as you want, I can enjoy social lives, I can have girlfriends, you can have best friends. Nothing of really fulfills me unless Christ is part of those experiences. And you know, I was speaking at John Paul II Awards in Carlow last night in the Kildare and Loughlin diocese, and there was 400 young people between 16 and 18 receiving the awards, and I thought this was pretty impressive. And for me, I feel, well, what I said to them as regards my relationship with Christ, I said I feel attracted to Christ. The more than we feel attracted to men, I feel attracted to women. I said, or boyfriend or girlfriends, in their case, I feel attracted to Christ. But the thing about Christ is there's no jealousy involved. And even if you go offside for a while, he'll still take you back. And that's where you have to reconcile, you know. So I said, Christ is the best girlfriend or boyfriend you can ever have. And whether that leads you to vocation or leads you to living out your faith through family life and through children and stuff, well, so be it. But to have Christ as the source of whatever it is you do, I think you'll go fine in life. And I guess it ties in with one aspect of English spirituality, ad maiorum Dei gloriam, which I would have learned in school. And it is written above the altar in Garnetry Church for the greater glory of God, and to have the sense of God in your life, whether you're meeting someone, whether you're doing something practical, whether you're washing the dishes, going for a walk, whether you're in a row with something, to try to come back to God in your life, you will always do fine. You won't go wrong. Are there times when you'll make mistakes? Absolutely. You'll fall off the bandwagon. You'll be addicted to something. But if you can have a sense of Christ in your life, to the support of people around you, you never will go wrong. So, how does faith come into my sport? And I have a fancy little iPad here. They're giving them out, Bishop Eamon, after today, are they? I got mine on the way in. Thanks, Darren. But I'm only slagging. But I guess my talk is faith and healthy life choices. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what could I possibly say to people at this talk, and I still really don't know what I'm saying in many ways, but I'm just going with what makes sense to me and hoping the Spirit is working through me. But there are some, I'll go back to just, again, that AMDG, and to have a sense of God in your life no matter what it is you're doing. Playing with Dublin and being successful on the pitch, you know, I've been very, very lucky and been very, very privileged. But what I said after the 2011 All-Irelands, when we beat Kerry, anyone from Kerry? Yes, that's great. I feel good about myself now. Is that a temporal pleasure or is that a real deep pleasure? I don't know. Okay, but no, it's great to have everyone here. But when we bet Kerry, I was asked, you know, what did it feel like? And I said, look, it was euphoria. If you could bottle up the 15 seconds after the final whistle and take it around with you, you'd never want for anything again in your life. You'd be happy out. But as we know, life doesn't work like that. It ebbs and flows, and good times and bad times. But what I've always said and maintained is that for me, Ad Maiorum Dei Gloriam was very much a part of the squad mentality, the squad ethos. And we were a very spiritual squad, the 2011 squad in particular. And whatever we did it to the best of our abilities. We strove for excellence. We didn't look for perfection, as that is impossible, but we strove for excellence in how we applied ourselves on and off the pitch. And the sense of belonging to that group, the sense of being part of something great, was one of the best feelings I've ever had. And while professional sport and GEA, the county football and hurling, is professional, we don't get paid. We genuinely do not get paid, but everything else we do is the same as what the professionals do. Professional sports people are measured on their results, but I've always said that while winning that All-Ireland was brilliant, being part of that team was even more special, because there was a sense of togetherness, belonging, a sense of faith, a sense of Ad Maiorum Dei Gloriam in everything that we did. So that really, really sustained me, and that was an important way in how faith played a part in my success, and still does so today. I've often been asked, do you ever pray to win? And I've never prayed to win, because I don't believe in asking God to do things that you can do yourself. But if you can have a sense of God in what you're doing, you'd be okay. Before games, I've always spent time in silence, just a couple of seconds, and with all of the emotions and nerves that go around the dressing rooms and the effing and blindings and everything else that goes on, and there is a bit of hatred there, but healthy hatred, and you kind of need that too, you know. But I always find a little corner and I just try to sit in silence. And Psalm 62 with a bit of Psalm 65 always comes into mind, and it's a song, Only in God is my soul at rest. And that's a song that I nearly sing to myself, that I learned in school, and we used to sing before games and after games in the rugby pitches. And I just felt a calmness going onto the field that whatever the result was, it didn't matter, because God was with me. God was not on my side, so to speak, but he was with me in what I was doing, and all would be fine. So that's something I still try to do today. There's a couple of scripture passages which my brother Derek, my eldest brother, he is a very spiritual guy himself. As regards religion, I guess people's understanding of religion, unfortunately, is how often you attend mass, how religious, how spiritual a person is. I don't believe that. I don't think a person's moral disposition should be defined by how often they go to church. I think it should be defined in how they treat others on a daily basis. But if they can reflect on the reasons behind why they treat others with goodness and kindness, and why human beings are innately called to be that way, and if they can see Christ as the source through God, through the Spirit, well, I think it fully enriches their experience, which is what I do. So Derek is a spiritual guy. He's always sending me on quotes before games, religious quotes, got to do with sport. And for those of you who may be aware of some of St. Paul's writings, St. Paul referred to sport on a regular basis and getting the most of yourself. But I want to go back to 3 quotes in particularly, and I think it ties in with making right choices and healthy choices in your life. And for those of us suffering from addictions, and again, chocolate, I'm deadly serious, chocolate is brutal for me. I could be sitting in the house, I know I've had half a packet of Maltesers, and there's another half a packet in the press. I can't rest until they're all gone, until they're out of the house. And I can only imagine that's what it must be like to someone suffering from any substance abuse. But anyway, Derek says, one of the quotes he sent me is from Deuteronomy. And chapter 31, verse 6, it says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them. For it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you." So, for them, do not fear or be in dread of them. For sport, it can be the opposition. But for me, I've never really cared about the opposition. On a practical level, you look at what they're good at, you look at tactically how they try to play. But them, for me, is my own fears, my own worries and concerns. So do not fear or be in dread of them. Because knowing that God is with you, knowing that you are human and you will have these fears and these desires for substances and doing wrong, but if you can keep coming back to God, I think that will sustain you and help you make the right choice. Isaiah, I have 20 quotes here. Is that all right? Is it? I set you up for mass tomorrow. All right, maybe Bishop Eamon, you might give them the day off tomorrow. Yeah, I got this from your homily there a few weeks ago. But no, I have 2 more. And Isaiah is someone who's always interested me, and again, I enjoy studying him in college in 3rd year. But he says, "But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their faith. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." And again, that's something which has always given me tremendous strength. When the shit hits the fan from a sporting point of view, or when it hits the fan from a real life point of view, if you can just have faith in the Lord that He is with you, if you can just wait for Him, that He is going to come to you, well, then you'll get through it. I work as a school teacher, RE, Irish and History, and school chaplaincy. If I said that to one of the kids, they'd say, "What are you talking about, sir? Wait for him. Sure, where is he?" Do you know what I mean? And some of you are maybe thinking that as well. But for me, He has always come in many different surprises. and particularly through the people I meet on an everyday basis, trying to see God in those people. So if you can wait, if you can go and ask someone for help, you will find God there, you will find Christ at work, because where there's goodness being done, God is very much present. So that's a quote which I've always taken with me on the pitch from time to time. And maybe just to come up to the New Testament, and the final one I'll say to you is from Hebrews. And this is really tough. And this for me is healthy life choices off the pitch. He says, "For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." And I think that is so important to me in my life and my choices that I make. Discipline is hard. Getting up for morning prayer, for those of you in the clergy or those of you who practice morning prayer, taking time out from your busy schedules to spend time with Christ, that is hard. But I take great courage from St. Paul that if you do it enough, it becomes habitual, and you will become sustained by it, and it will filter through everything else that you do in your life. And for me, for example, this morning getting up, I was slightly late for training. Punctuality is something I'm not great with. Okay, I'm too easy. Well, I'm too easy going, or I don't know what it is, but punctuality is something I need to work on. So this morning, getting up before training, I really needed to get up at 7:30 to get a bowl of porridge into me, because we were on the pitch for 10. So what did I do? The alarm went off at 11:30, and I rolled over. I honestly rolled over. I put on the snooze button. I ended up getting up at 8 o'clock, and instead of having porridge, I had Rice Krispies. Rice Krispies are fine, but they're a sugar rush, but they're not going to sustain you. And Rice Krispies, like sugar, like drugs, like alcohol, they give you a kick, they give you a high for a while, but it's a big drop afterwards. So during training, well, I got through training fine. I can't say I noticed anything too different. If things were to get tough, and I went back to my resolve, and I looked and said to myself, have I done everything right? The answer is no. So discipline is something so important to how you live your life, whether it's prayer, whether it's keeping in touch with friends. The rewards from doing it are tenfold to anything else you do by yourself. I can't think of his name, but there was a abbot in England, and do you remember the show that was on television a couple of years ago? And it's only springing to mind now, that's why I can't think of his name. And there was 5 people who went to live in the monastery and lived with the monks, and they had to give up their phones and their laptops and everything else and join in what the monks were doing. And the TV program, it charted their journey. It looked on a psychological level their attachment to social media, their attachment to having to know what's going on in the world, their attachment to basically temporal goods. And it showed how much they struggled with these addictions. But after a time, they began to come out of themselves. They began to reverse the trend, and they began to become more content with themselves. And the word that the abbot uses, and I will find the name and I'll send it on to Darren if you wanted to put up on the webpage. He wrote a book, and he talked about obedience and obediare, to hear correctly. And obedience is not to follow orders. Obedience is to listen to what is true in yourself. And what is true to yourself is when your gut feeling, when your conscience says, yes, that this makes sense. So if we can remove ourselves from the mind and return ourselves to the soul, to the spirit, and to listen correctly, to listen wisely with an open heart, you will never ever go wrong in life. You will come back to God always. So thanks very much for listening. I hope I didn't bore you too much or anything like that. Sorry for slagging the Kerry folk, but you have won so many things over the years, so it was great to get one over you. I'm not sure as well. So I'll finish by saying I am someone who, because I'm painting myself a beautiful picture here, and I'm not that beautiful at all. I have a lot of things which I'm poor at. I get grumpy when I'm tired. I can be short with my family and with my friends. I can be indisciplined. I can drink too much on nights out. I can get carried away with myself. But I also feel very, very fortunate that through my own personal relationship with Christ, through seeing Christ in my family, particularly my parents, and through seeing Christ in my friends, I've always been kept in the straight and narrow. So thanks very much for listening.